All right. We're set. We're going. So this unit in math, the last 2 weeks, we've talked about number lines, integers, what makes an integer, when we've talked about negative numbers and their opposites, or real numbers and their opposites. I have one last concept that we're going to introduce. The last concept that we've got to introduce before we actually start using everything is the phrase absolute value. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know right now that this is new learning. So absolute value is a brand new concept that's introduced in 6th grade. Real world applications of absolute value are not necessarily super, it's not something that you're going to use very often in real life, but it's important to understand absolute value so that you can start to do things in real life. And we'll get into that a little bit later this week. So we're learning about absolute value because it's giving us the distance we are away from zero. Okay. When we're on a number line, regardless of where we are, we can find our absolute value, and that simply tells us how far away from zero we are. So once again, zero's popping up, and zero's got a special role. Zero's got a special function. This is why I say that zero is one of the most important numbers, because absolute value doesn't deal with zero. Sorry, absolute value deals with zero, not other numbers. I misspoke. I apologize. Now, we're going to get to a point when you get older, you're going to start doing things called quadratic equations and algebra. I personally loved algebra. A lot of people don't. Algebra is a very it's like puzzle math almost, where you're doing a lot of manipulation of numbers to solve things. It's like clues. Unfortunately, a lot of people just look at algebra and see torture, but you know, to each their own, right? So what we need to understand about absolute value is that we are measuring how far we are away from zero. So if we go back to the very beginning of this lesson, and we go back to the understanding of what a number line was used for, all right? We are talking about when we are counting our steps away from zero. So if I was on the number 14 right here, how many steps away from zero am I? Type it in chat. Good job, Braulio. Give you a point. All right. So Braulio is right. When we are on the number 14, we have taken 14 steps to get to that spot. Let me pull up my dojo. I'm sorry. Braulio participating. Okay. So that right there is absolute value. It's something that we've already kind of known a little bit, but I'm now putting another nerm to it. I'm nerming it, guys. I'm nerming it. Naming it. All right. So regardless of where we are, if we're on 25, our absolute value of 25 is going to be how many steps we are away from zero, which is what? If we're on 25, we are, good job, Braulio, we are 25 points away. We are 25 steps away. Now, Miguel, you made a really interesting and very common mistake, okay? And we're going to talk about that in a second. Braulio, Natalie, Josue, Miguel, thank you for responding. I appreciate it. Let's see, Natalie, I'll give you the point because Braulio has already gotten one. So it's okay, but no, it's fine because that's actually something that happens a lot, Miguel, and we're going to talk about it, okay? When we're taking and we're finding how far away from zero we are, what we're doing is we're basically measuring. We're finding how many steps we are away from zero. So here. It would be no different than if I pulled out a ruler and I was like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to measure how wide this piece of paper is. 8.5 inches. Okay. So we're measuring the distance from 0. Now, because we're measuring a distance from 0, have we ever measured something and been given a negative number? Have we ever measured a negative distance? Yes or no in chat? Have you ever gotten a ruler out and you're like, this looks like it's -3 inches. Find the -3 on there. Is there a -3? No. And the reason is distance, measuring the distance is always going to be a positive number. Regardless if we're looking from -15 or +15, right? You still, Natalie has it exactly right. It doesn't matter if the number is negative, it still has the same value. You still do the same steps from 0. And I couldn't have put it better myself. We know how hard I've struggled with talking today. Okay. Absolute value. Here's the cheat, the trick, the cheat. Okay. Absolute value is always going to be a positive number. If you're finding the absolute value of a positive number, it's going to be positive. You're finding the absolute value of a negative number, it's going to be positive. What is the mistake that kids typically make? And it was the one that we introduced back with when Miguel was saying his answer. People confuse absolute value and opposites, and they think they're the same thing. So when they're like, okay, well, it makes sense. Opposite value. Okay, so if I have -15, the opposite of -15 is 15. If I have -15, the absolute value is 15. They're the same thing. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. The opposite of +15 is -15. So the absolute value of 15 must also be -15. And that's where they go wrong. Okay? When we're looking at this number line, we are literally measuring 1, 2, 3, 4. I took 5 steps. It doesn't matter which way I took the steps. I took 5 steps. And that's why it's always positive. Give me a thumbs up in chat if you're following along. Minus sign if you're kind of meh, and thumbs down if you're lost. On your quiz on Friday, you are going to have a question. I am telling you a quiz question now. It is being recorded now, so you can watch it later. A quiz question will be, explain the difference between positive, no, bad words. Explain the difference between opposites and absolute value. And you will have to write a response that says how they're different and why they're different. Okay? We're going to have a lot of practice between now and then for that anyway, so don't stress out about it. But that is a question coming up on your quiz on Friday. Now, there is one last thing that I don't, for some reason, I'm a dummy, and I didn't put this in my slides anywhere. And I can't believe that I did. And so we're going to improvise real quick. Just like how the negative sign technically means the opposite of, we have a symbol that explains what absolute, or it's the mathematical symbol for absolute value. And I'm pulling up something hopefully now. Perfect. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is not the IXL skill we're doing today, so don't think you're getting an answer. You see how we have those weird lines up and down on either side of the 5? That is the mathematical way that we write the absolute value. So we read this as, what is the absolute value of 5? Okay. I will make a slide for that because for some reason, I don't know why I didn't. But when you have those vertical lines surrounding a number, we read that as the absolute value. So I will make that slide today. Yes, the absolute value of 5 is 5 because 5 is how many steps away from 0? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. Okay.